Hello, and welcome to another episode of Be the Love to Awaken Our Souls. Thank you again so much for tuning in this week. I'm Stacy Musial.
And I am Brenda Carey with our special guest, Hale Dwoskin. We are your co-hosts and souls on the journey. We are on a mission to raise the consciousness of humans and the planet, and we need your help. Please spread the word to your family and friends and join us every week. Consider becoming a Patreon supporter or a sponsor to help with the operating costs like editing and the many hours we spend creating these shows with quality guests and content. And if you have resonated with our mission, support us in a way that raises your vibration to love.
And if it feels safe for you, I'd like to begin by inviting you to get centered with us. I'd like to begin by inviting you to take a beautiful cleansing breath in through your nose and out through your mouth, releasing anything that is keeping you from being present. And take another breath in through your nose, breathing in calm, peaceful, loving energy, and breathing out anything you are ready to release in this now moment. And take one more breath in through your nose, breathing in light and love for yourself. And imagine breathing that light and love and send it back to all of humanity, remembering that you always, always have your breath to come back to.
Our guest today is Hale Dwoskin. Hale has dedicated more than 4 decades to teaching and sharing the Sedona Method, which helps people alleviate their suffering, actualize their goals, and discover the truth of who they are. Hale is the author of the New York Times bestseller, The Sedona Method, and the co-author of Happiness is Free and It's Easier Than You Think with Lester Levenson. He is one of the featured teachers in the book and movie phenomenon The Secret, as well as a featured teacher in Rhonda Byrne's latest book, The Greatest Secret. He is also featured on the movie Letting Go. Hale is the director of training, lead teacher, and spokesperson for Sedona Training Associates, an organization created to promote the emotional releasing techniques inspired by his friend and original teacher, Lester Levenson. And he is also a founding member of the Transformational Leadership Council. Wow, thank you so much for being here with us today, Hale.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you both for having me.
So, you have such a rich and inspiring journey, and I know I and our listeners would love to hear, what has led you down this amazing spiritual path?
Well, it's hard to say on one level because you don't wake up one morning and decide to be a seeker. No, we're born seekers. As soon as there's a sense of separation, which for most of us happens before we reach age 2, for the rest of our lives, we're seeking wholeness. We're seeking just being home. And because we feel incomplete, we feel not good enough, not enough. And we think that I'm in here and everyone and everything else is out there. And so the conscious seeking can be for anything. We go through all sorts of different things that we think are going to fulfill us. We might think relationships are going to fulfill us, or money, or better health, or being admired by everybody, or saving the planet, or meeting the right teacher, or gaining enlightenment. All those things we're looking for in order to fill a void that actually isn't real. What we are, or what all is actually free of this sense of separation already. It is already wholeness. It is already beingness. It is already unconditional love. That is this. Whatever is apparently happening, it already is the end of the search. Yet, for most of us, we go through a little bit more of a formal search after we've gone. People who are interested in listening to a show like this are probably following some sort of spiritual path. It could be a Western-inspired one or an Eastern-inspired one. It could be meditation or yoga or letting go. There could be so many things that we're doing to try to rediscover that which we've really never lost. And so this particular body mind started seeking after consciously seeking. In retrospect, I realized that there was this seeking from as early as I could remember. But the conscious path started when I was a teenager and read books like Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda.
Mm-hmm.
And also There is a River by Edgar Cayce. And that started a more conscious quest. And then at age 22, I met Lester Levenson, who became my first main teacher. And Lester was someone who just was a living embodiment of what I'd been seeking. There was this sense of calm and peace, and he was very unassuming. He had no desire to be in the spotlight. In fact, I met him because he came to a event that I helped organize for a man named Leonard Orr. It was Theta Seminars. He used to have 1 year seminars, 1 year seminars. And I was the New York organizer with another woman. And Lester came to the seminars as a guest, but I didn't even notice him because he just sat there as one of the participants and didn't say a word. But Lester and I and the co-organizer and Leonard went out to lunch, and just sitting there was just this, it's hard to describe, but this sense, being with him, everything, the mind stopped, seeking temporarily dropped away, and there was just this sense of being. And he didn't say much about what he taught, or because he actually didn't even lead the seminars. He had already trained other people to do that. He wasn't, as I mentioned, interested in being in front of a room. And he always said about it is, you sit around a table and release. And this is 1976. And releasing back then was either what they talked about in 12 steps or beating pillows. And I didn't know much about either. So I had no idea what to expect. But there was this thought, if it could help me be even a little like he was a little bit more like he was a living embodiment of that, I wanted to do it. So I signed up, not really knowing what it was, for a 2-weekend seminar, which is how it was taught back then. And before the seminar was even over, there was this deep knowing that this is what I was going to dedicate my life to. I was 22 years old, and I found the thing that I'm still doing. I'm only a few weeks away from my 69th birthday.
Wow.
So
Wow.
That's an amazing celebration.
Yes, yes.
So, and over the years, I mostly just did what I could to support him. And then in 1987, I also was being trained to be an instructor, and then started teaching the Sedona Method, starting to do what I could to help, and traveling often to Sedona, Arizona to take what they called intensives or retreats. And then in 87, I had already become very successful, and I decided to work for Lester at his nonprofit as a full-time volunteer. So I left New York and moved to Phoenix, Arizona, which is where the headquarters were, and I worked for him. And in the early 90s, he insisted on giving me all his copyrights and turning, because he said he knew that I was going to be the one to take this out to the world. And I went, well, actually, I was a little nervous about it, and whoops. Sorry, pushed the wrong button. I was a little nervous about it, and I actually felt quite inadequate to take on that mantle. But he insisted, and I agreed. And so what happened since then is Lester passed a few years after that, and then I've been running this organization and teaching others to teach it since the early 90s. And it's gone out all over the world, and the teaching itself has expanded to several different profound ways of letting go, including recognizing that there's no one to let go and nowhere to go, that this is already freedom. So, and along the way, I practiced it on myself and with many, many other people, and all my supposed problems seemed to correct themselves. And although at age 22, honestly, I probably didn't have that many true problems. I only thought I did. But there were, of course, challenges throughout my life. And it was great to have a tool to let go when this shit hit the fan, so to speak. So anyway, that's a brief version of my story.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Hale. It sounds like a beautiful journey up to this point. And there's so many pieces in there that I would love to jump into. And I'm just one of the, maybe a part of the conversation is about that separation, right? The fear or the illusion of separation.
Yes.
And, so there's so many layers to that and what keeps us separate from, or feeling separate, right? That illusion. And so I'm wondering, what are some ways that you might suggest someone, start to shed some of those layers that create that illusion?
Well, there are two ways to answer that question. I will definitely give some tools that can be helpful. But before I even do that, that one who believes they're separate is the separation. We often believe that me as a person can follow a path or do certain techniques in order to discover who we truly are. But all of that is still separation. As long as there's a me and other, even if we're following a very evolved teacher, if there's me and the teacher, and the teacher is giving me instructions about what I should do to find what I already am, that actually can appear to reinforce separation, although there isn't any. The sense of separation is an illusion based on the seeker's his or her self. The seeking creates the sense of separation. That contraction of being localized to be a physical location, as in this body, and the sense that everyone else is out there in their bodies, is what we experience as true. Yet it isn't real. It isn't actual. So what already is beingness or wholeness or boundlessness. So there really is, from where are you going to go, or what are you going to do to discover that which all is already? There's no place to do that from. On the other hand, for most of us, it can be very supportive to explore that and to see where it leads us. So there are many techniques and questions that can help with that. They won't actually change the fact that what is already is wholeness. But they certainly make the seeker feel a lot better, feel like he or she is getting somewhere. And these same techniques that supposedly help us become what we already are tend to make our lives happier, smoother, more harmonious. And so the techniques really are helpful for that, rather than being what already is. And so there are so many. Give me more of an example of what you'd like to hear about, and I'll focus on that.
Yeah. So, someone who might be having a lot of fear or feeling like there is the other, right? And so maybe giving their power away to a teacher, like in that example. I think there's a lot of energy being, seeing other people as in this hierarchical place.
Yes.
And so, creating this separation and giving the power away. And so how do we take our power back, right? How would you suggest someone like our listeners to like really embody their wholeness so that they recognize that they have the answers within themselves?
Yes. So there's always two ways to answer the question. I can answer the question on the face of it, or I can answer the question by just simply describing what is already. So I'll start with that. Well, I'll start with a technique first. So with fear on a very simple level is an expectation for something that's to happen that we don't want to happen. In other words, if you've seen something that happened to someone else or to yourself, you have a memory, you've heard it on the internet, you've heard it from your friends or relatives or from society that this is bad, and this hurts, or it's been your direct experience, we start not wanting it to happen. And the mind cannot translate not or never or don't. For instance, if I say right now, don't think of a pink elephant, it gets harder and harder not to think of a pink elephant. So everything that we're trying to avoid, including the things that we're afraid of, we're actually pulling towards us internally. And so a shortcut for releasing fear is to simply allow ourselves to notice what it is we're expecting to happen and let go of that expectation or desire for it to happen. So I'll take us through that just quickly. So in this moment, could you just simply pause or stop? And notice what is. And be open at least to the possibility that this is already the goal. It isn't somewhere else. It's not some other time or some other place. Beyond time and place is this. And this is already boundless, already freedom. And then could you allow yourself to think of something that you're afraid of? It doesn't matter what it is. And could you just simply welcome or allow whatever that brings up Is it welcomed here? Is it what's apparently happening? And then with fear, there is usually an expectation. So what is it you're not wanting to have happen? And in this moment, could you let go of expecting that to happen as best you can? Would you? When? And then do that again. Focus on that same fear or any other one that seems to disturb. And see what the expectation is in the fear. And is that welcomed or allowed? Is that just what's apparently happening? And then could you let go of wanting or expecting that to happen? Just could you? Would you? When? And let's do that one more time. Again, allow yourself to focus on that same thing that stirs up fear or anything else that you appear to be afraid of. And could you just simply welcome whatever that brings up? Is it allowed? Is it what's apparently happening? And then as best you can, just for now, could you let go of wanting that to happen or expecting it to happen? Would you? When? And then just simply check, is there actually someone there to be afraid? Or is that just simply energy arising for no one? Okay, good.
That was a beautiful journey, at least. And I loved how you repeated it because I think like the first time I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to let go. So I need to like reintroduce it. And it was like there certain layers came off. And by the third time, it started out with a fear of failure for me.
Yes.
And then it kind of morphed into disappointment.
Yes.
And then it went into grief.
Yes.
And so it was just kind of this unveiling of like what I thought was at the surface.
Yes.
And then went a couple layers deeper. And I loved how you kind of just brought us through with such calmness too, because my brain automatically goes to the resistance of, I don't want to fail. I don't want to be seen like that. And so just noticing my own sort of expectation and reaction to that was quite the journey. So thank you for that gift.
Great. Good.
Yeah, that was really beautiful. I found myself just moving through those layers as well. And at first I felt that, a little bit of that resistance in my body and, going through the depth of that, and able to like, okay, like I can move through this. I can really, and I like that trust came Once I dropped through that layer of resistance, there was like a trust within myself, like, I have this. This is something that I can trust myself to handle, because I know that I'm strong enough. And so that was really, really beautiful.
Oh, good.
Thank
So
you.
this technique is to just simplify it for our listeners or viewers. I don't know if you share video too.
Yes.
Yeah, so listeners and viewers. If you find yourself feeling fearful, you can just go to the expectation in the fear and either let go of that expectation, or this might seem counterintuitive, the desire for it to happen. The expectation creates, when you say I don't want it to happen, that's still the same. So if you let go of either wanting it to happen or expecting it to happen, it helps fear dissolve very quickly, as you just both noticed. And we only went through it 3 times. If you're doing this on your own, you do it as long as you need to in order to feel that peace and acceptance that is what is natural.
I really love that of doing, I could see myself like doing it throughout the day.
Yes.
Because I'm like, in this moment, I felt that peace and that calm. And then I'm like, but this afternoon, I could see like some of the old patterning, those old, I guess, mental habits that have been created over who knows how many years, to kind of creep back in there. So would that be a suggestion, I'm assuming, is like not just in that one moment, but revisiting it?
Yes. Yeah, well, it's a technique. It's just one technique from the tool chest, but any of these techniques are designed to be used whenever there's the feeling of feeling out of sorts, out of balance, fearful, angry, sad, confused. It's the tool chest of the Sedona method can be used just about, well, actually on any topic. But on the other hand, it's good to balance the techniques of letting go of what we don't want with recognizing that which already is. So another thing you can do throughout the day is just simply check, is even this being? We think being is just the good feeling that we have inside ourselves after we've meditated or released. And we miss the fact that beingness is boundless. Everything is that already. So if you start questioning it, you can start to notice that even when there is fear, that too is what's apparently happening. That too is beingness. Even when there's anger, even when there's frustration, even when there's loneliness, and when there's bliss, when there's peace, when there's unbound joy. It's not just what we would judge as the good stuff. It's everything. And because of that, you can just check. So let's do that too. Whatever's being experienced in this moment, check. Is it possible that too is beingness, is wholeness?
Yes. Yeah. And it's like honoring all of it as part of our beingness. And so it sounds like, yeah, just to really, that the humanness is, we've had
yes. The body, well, the screen you're looking at the moment, the floor, the ceiling, whatever is perceived, and even that which isn't perceivable, is already that wholeness or beingness that all is. And it's not where it feels compartmentalized or separate, is we feel like it's my beingness and your beingness, or my body and your body. There's just beingness, bodying, beingness, walling, beingness, talking, beingness, listening. But that sense of ownership is just an illusion based on thinking that you're here and everything else is there.
Mm. Mm. So can you say more about that as far as like, the beingness and being and, allowing my beingness and your beingness, and there's no separation, but I'm wondering, because when I think about that, I think about just consciousness and the higher being and that no separation, but we can co-create this beingness in this moment. That's kind of
Yes.
what I'm looking. So if
I
you could
understand,
expand.
but who is the co-creator?
Mm-hmm.
If all of it is already this,
Mm-hmm.
and does it even need to be created if it is already?
Mm-hmm.
See,
Yeah.
we live in a culture that's where almost everyone believes there's somewhere to go and someone to get there.
Mm.
And that belief is endemic. Society is based on it. Seeking is based on it. All seeking, even the most advanced spiritual seeking, is based on me achieving a state that's somehow different than this.
Mm.
And so that isn't wrong. That too is beingness. Even the seeking is beingness. Or again, I'm using the word beingness, but you could use whatever word you'd like that seems to point towards this that we're talking about. Mm. And so it's helpful to balance. If you're going to do a technique to let go of what we believe is the contraction of the darkness or the limiting thoughts and feelings, also do things that help you recognize that there's nowhere to go and no one to go there, that this, whatever is already apparently happening, is already wholeness, is already unconditional love.
Mm. I love really reflecting on these words that you share. One thing came up for me though, in when you mentioned our culture who believes we have some place to go or something to achieve, and I would really love your insights on how distraction plays a part in us separating from this beingness and wholeness. And I think this is a really sticking point for a lot of people. Like they desire the beingness, but the to-do list is over here, or the cell phone is here with all the, distractions on there. Like, how does one, I hate to use the word separate, but how does one come into like realizing that there's all these things that's drawing attention away from this beingness? And how can we kind of manage modern world and, life of having to do the things and also coming from a place of wholeness? How does one like navigate that?
Well, one doesn't.
I would love an expansion of that because I'm
like. Now, see that is also a release. When there's a recognition by no one that there really isn't a problem or anyone to have a problem, the sense of all limitation starts to dissolve. And it's often accompanied by laughter. And so what you described is, you could substitute any goal for, if I want to make more money, then I need to spend this amount of time doing things to make more money. But that is all based on the assumption that there is not already abundance. And it's based on putting money aside for a second. In spirituality, we think that I'm not there yet. I have to be quieter, more peaceful, eat, have a vegan diet, or whatever it is that you've decided is the path to get to where all already is. And so as soon as we think there's something we need, as soon as there's a sense that I need to do something, no matter what it is, that is separation already. But at the same time, that isn't wrong. The everything that the body mind does or doesn't do is already the beloved in action. Whether it's walking the dog, writing a symphony, picking up after your children, meditating, getting lost in social media on the phone, it doesn't matter what it is. We think that we need to be the arbiter to make sure that we do what's correct. And that's assuming that this, whatever is already apparently happening, isn't it. So on one level, that there isn't a requirement for that. On the other hand, every time there is a recognition of this that already is, all the other stuff tends to, that seems to be distracting us, tends to have less of a pull. And letting go is especially helpful for that, because if, like for instance, you mentioned the phone. If you find that you're reaching for the phone and you'd rather be meditating, or you think you should be meditating, which is often more like it. So you can just notice the pull and welcome the pull, allow the pull, and notice that even that pull is just what's apparently happening. And in that, the pull tends to dissolve. And you may or may not find yourself meditating, but it may not matter. See, again, we meditate because we feel like this, whatever is being experienced in this moment, isn't freedom. Freedom is, and then we have, there are things like Satchidananda or whatever it is. And all those things come with our concepts of what it's supposed to look like, taste like, sound like, feel like. And then we're comparing this that actually already is to that which we want it to be. And this, no matter what we're experiencing, never seems to be quite enough. And all of that is separation in action. It's not real. It's an illusion. And that is beingness or the beloved or wholeness too. We think we have to stop all our negative tendencies, for instance. But what if tendencies and thoughts and feelings don't actually belong to us? Because there's no us for them to belong to. There is just wholeness.
That's so beautiful and so freeing. And so
Right.
you mentioned, that state of freedom, right? And that wholeness and coming back to that peace. And so it, as we are letting go of maybe those attachments, as we're becoming more aware and those pulls, and I can, imagine maybe that pull for like any addiction or addictive, that feels like an addiction, that can be really freeing. And I'm wondering, I would love to hear your thoughts on how we can truly begin to also deepen that state of freedom that's already within us. And is there anything that we can do internally around that?
Well, again, since it is already everything, what is deeper than that which is already everything and nothing at all?
Yeah. And it feels like it's this embodied practice.
Yes, but if we're trying to embody what already is, we're assuming that the body that isn't being. So, like right now, after the conversation we've had so far, there's probably more of a sense of spaciousness and openness and wholeness, and there's probably less thinking, and there may even be a sense of peaceful joyousness. That's generally what happens in these type of conversations, or just a sense of freedom. And see if you can find where that ends. And by the way, everyone at home watching or listening to this could join us. See if you can find where that ends and the body begins. Or where the body ends and that begins. Is there actually a boundary? Does beingness start or end at the skin? No, boundaries are purely imaginary. It's not that this physical body is the same as that physical body, but bodies are beingness, bodying. And so there's nothing apart from that. And that, if you notice, that feels even more freeing, yet at the same time more embodied. Because there's no longer a sense that I have to do something or go somewhere in order to be what already is. And the sense of me is weakened by that. The recognition that there isn't one. There is just the wholeness already.
Yes.
I love that insight.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful shift in that perspective.
Yeah. So I'm curious, as you focus on this work, I mean, so much work that you've done with the Sedona Method, and I'm curious, how do you see like the macro vision for the work that you do? Like, how do you see it in a bigger picture of healing the planet?
Well, I think two things. First off, the the planet, human beings are not being very good stewards of the planet. I think you would both agree with me on that.
Mm-hmm.
And this body mind contributes money because it's busy doing this work at other times to many causes that are doing things to help the planet. But at the same time, there is this deep recognition that even what seems to be the worst about what's happening with the planet right now is also just beingness expressing as that. So rather than try to be against any particular problem that the planet is experiencing, there is a holding. It's not even a holding or a knowing. There is, again, I guess the word is recognition, that what is unfolding is what is unfolding. And if there's something that this particular body mind can do to support it, it will happen. And if there isn't, it won't. And so on one level, there is certainly a lot of turmoil on the planet, on every level, and systems are breaking down. And the thing is that we, in order to survive, even if you're a vegan, which this body mind is, the food has to be broken first. Whatever the food is has to die first, and then it's broken down into something that the body can use. Well, part of what's happening on the planet is the things that are probably the most destructive to the health of the planet are breaking down. Some of them are getting more exaggerated, and most of them are already breaking down. And that is just the beginning of the natural evolutionary transformation of this entire planet. And we're not doing it. It's just what's apparently happening. There is this openness to messages like this on the planet. Everything that you do on your podcasts. And that is also part of this whole thing. I mean, yes, for most of us, the pandemic wasn't exactly our favorite thing in the world. But at the same time, the pandemic, for many, many people, kind of encouraged them to look within for the answer instead of externally. Mm-hmm. And it was still looking for an answer, so it's still dualistic or in separation, but it also is part of the natural unfolding of the whole. So because there is just this, whatever is apparently happening, there are no mistakes. There are no problems. There are certainly challenges that each body mind deals with on a daily basis. But the solutions aren't up to each individual. They're not up to this God kind of looking down and manipulating everything. The solutions just happen spontaneously as a response to whatever's happening.
Yeah, it's been such a beautiful awakening process through this, the pandemic. And, as things and systems are breaking down, I think there's been a lot of awareness around people, and that, as people had to go with inside, and as they were quarantining, we started to go inside, and of our beings to find those answers. I saw that shift and really connecting with a deeper part of themselves, and things, started waking up, and it feels like things are continuing to shift, and it's been a beautiful process to watch.
Yes.
So thank you, Hale. And I wonder if you could tell our listeners where they can find you and what you're currently working on.
Sure. What I'm currently, I'm not working on anything. Let me explain what I mean with that. There is this process has the evolution of this process was just a response to people coming and asking for help or support. And so all the few things that we did together all came out of that. They weren't actually something that I did. I don't do anything. And neither do you. And either one of you or anyone who's listening. There is certainly things that happen through the body-mind. And that is part of life. Life is all of this beautiful and sometimes awful unfolding that is life is already bound with freedom. So I'm not actually doing anything. There is just what's apparently happening. And the Sedona Method continues to go out like it has been for decades to people, because there is an openness in people to letting go of that which doesn't serve them. And the Sedona Method is a incredibly focused and powerful and at the same time easy to use way of dissolving anything that seems to be standing in the way. And as far as contacting us, the easiest thing to do is just go to our website, which is sedona.com, just like the city in Arizona. Although I live in Bellingham, Washington. I don't live there anymore. I lived there 30 years. And then I decided I wanted to, well, I didn't decide. There was this decision to move to Bellingham, Washington with my wife. We mutually felt drawn to being near water, more water and more trees and more nature. And Sedona has been discovered. When I first was there in Sedona, it was just a small town with 2 stoplights.
Not anymore.
It's grown.
Not anymore. No. There's more. There are more traffic jams in this. I live. Bellingham is a city of 90,000. And there's less traffic problems here than in this. The actual residents in Sedona are 15,000.
Wow.
But there are millions of tourists who pour through this tiny little town every year. So it was time to move on.
It's the seekers.
Right. A lot of them are seekers, or people just attracted to the natural beauty of the place. But anyway, so Sedona.com is the easiest. And then I have a podcast called Letting Go and the Greatest Secret. So you can check out my podcast, which is where all podcasts are available. There's a YouTube channel that has hundreds of free videos of what I went through with all of us, and many other things that will support you immediately for free. And we also have a Facebook group where there are called the Sedona Method, and where every day there are quotes from me and Lester Levenson, and also free videos. So those are the ways to, and of course there's books. There's the Sedona Method book, which is everywhere books are sold, and Happiness is Free. That looks like you've had it for a while.
I've had it for probably almost 20 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so there are lots of ways to connect with this work. And I occasionally do phone or Zoom meetings and seminars, as well as provide free support and do retreats. And all that you can find out about through sedona.com.
Right. Thank you so much, Hale, for being here with us today and just
Oh,
sharing
it's my
this
pleasure.
space to have this amazing conscious conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you both for making it possible.
Thank you. And at Be the Love podcast, we are so excited about our upcoming Awaken Your Soul Costa Rica retreat on November 6th to the 12th, 2023. We would love to have you join us for a beautiful and vibrational raising experience. Check out the webpage with details and registration in the show notes.
And thank you for listening to Be the Love podcast. If you've enjoyed listening to our show, please share the love by sharing it with your friends and family, giving us a 5-star written review on iTunes, or liking us on Facebook. And please consider supporting our mission to awaken our souls with a monthly donation that really helps with the operating costs of this podcast so we can continue to spread the love. To contribute, please visit our Patreon website at patreon.com/Be the Love podcast. And stay tuned for more episodes being released on Mondays at 5:55 a.m. Mountain Time.